Rather than interrupt this program, I will precede it by letting you know we recorded it before Arcangelo was scratched from the Breeders' Cup Classic and before Dirt Mile contender Practical Move's fatal seizure at Santa Anita. So if you hear anything that sounds outdated based on that, that is why. Now, on with the show. It was 1984 when the Breeders' Cup was born at Hollywood Park. Now, the 40th renewal is at hand, just to the north at the great race place, Santa Anita. The event that began with 7 races in one day has grown into a 2-day affair, 14 championships, worth $28 million in purse money, and who knows how much to us. It's headlined by the $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic, the richest race in America. We will preview all these races in our 7th annual Hardcore Handicappers episode of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod. And let's go around our cyber room, if you will, as most of us are in Kentucky, one man closer to the Breeders' Cup than all of us, and we're all going to be there by week's end. In fact, maybe even by the time you're consuming this podcast. First of all, from Las Vegas, I think he's been known to be at places like Saratoga and San Diego, and he's the man who runs the DraftKings Sportsbook and will tell us about DK Horse in a little bit. Here's Johnny Avello. Hi, John.
Good morning, gentlemen. Nice to be with you. You're right, Ronnie. I am heading out to Santa Anita, and from what I saw, the weather's going to be spectacular. So looking forward to a weekend of great racing, weather, and a few cocktails.
Yes, maybe not necessarily in that order. We have the man who is the brainchild, the boss at Horse Racing Nation. He is in Louisville, Kentucky, and he's going to offer us some insight and wisdom as well. Mark Midland. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Ron. Glad to be here once again with this esteemed group of handicappers, and we had some good success with the Triple Crown, so let's keep that going. And 14 big races coming up, so can't wait.
And the man who certainly knows his way around a Breeders' Cup or two or more. And he is in charge of our product and promotion at Horse Racing Nation. And yeah, he's been known to handicap a time or two. Find him on social media at EJXD2. Find him responding to the name Ed DeRosa. Hello, Ed.
Hello. Looking forward to a big Breeders' Cup. Santa Anita. I ran some stats yesterday of the frequent hosts. Has the smallest favorite win percentage, so hopefully can beat some chalk this weekend.
Okay, we'll get into the 14 races one by one, and we'll analyze each one. I do want to mention to you, though, that Santa Anita is not the only place where racing is happening this weekend. I want to call your attention to the fall meet that's continuing at Churchill Downs. 20 more days of racing, including this week from Wednesday through Sunday. 13 more stakes are on the schedule, highlighted by the signature race of the fall, the Grade 2 $600,000 Clark, presented by Norton Healthcare on Friday, November 24th, the day after Thanksgiving. And the road to the Kentucky Derby prep season continues Saturday the 25th with the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes. During the Breeders' Cup program Friday and Saturday, there's racing at Churchill, and it's not going to upstage the Breeders' Cup. You know how you're always complaining about how the races overlap? Churchill's scheduled them properly, and in fact, they're going to fall right in between. So if you're looking for a little get even special or want to let it roll, let it ride, if you will, on a race in between, they will be there, and they will not overlap what's going on in California. We would prefer to say augment, if you will. The fall meet will be paying out nearly $23 million in purse money, and that's a daily average of more than $1 million. All purses include prize money from the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund. What that all means is more enticing fields. There's a carrot for the horsemen, and with all those good horses coming in, that's a carrot for you, the better. The races should have more stacked fields and more quality in them. First post time each day is 1 o'clock Eastern time, with one exception. That's Thanksgiving, when it will be early at 11:30 a.m. So whether you're going to the track in Louisville or watching live from wherever you are, why not check it out? The fall meet at Churchill Downs. For more information, visit churchilldowns.com. This is the Hardcore Handicappers edition of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod. If you're listening to this as a podcast and it's after midday Wednesday, let me call your attention to the Horse Racing Nation YouTube page. we will be posting there this episode in video form. And if you're already there, this is your invitation to check us out on the weekly episodes of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod. They drop every Friday with pop-ups like this one to handicap big races. And you can subscribe at Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts, or check it out in the podcast section at horseracing.nation.com. Let's get to the Friday races on the Breeders' Cup card, specifically the Breeders' Cup races themselves. It's a 5 set of races, and we're looking at 2-year-olds in these Stars of Tomorrow that will be featured on a sunny 82-degree day, according to the National Weather Service. So that promise of good weather is looking like it will be made good. The first race of the group will be race 5 in the program, and that is the $1 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. It will go just 5 furlongs on the turf course. 2-year-olds, 14 of them +1 also eligible. Big Evs drew post 4 and was made the 3-1 morning line favorite on the strength of 2 group victories this year. And maybe more impressive than those, he defeated 22 rivals to win the Windsor Castle Stakes at Royal Ascot. That's the backdrop for the favorite. We got a bunch to choose from, and let's see now. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Ed, you're Mo. You get to start out.
All right. Well, I am going to try to beat Big Evs. I already mentioned going to hopefully be against some favorites. More hopefully be right about those favorites. No Name Mets, to me, it's important to remember this is a 5 furlong, 1 turn race, a sharp turn at that. Very different than what the Euros are used to in terms of their straightaway courses typically when sprinting. I actually think that favors the Americans. And of all the turf races we have in the Breeders' Cup, I would say the international contingent probably definitely the turf sprint is not their ballywick. So to me, No Name Mets, who we've seen handle the 1 turn in America and do so with some good figures, I think we're going to get the right price, because I agree with the morning line maker. Big Ev's the favorite. I'm going to take No Name Mets.
Johnny, your turn.
Interesting, because that's kind of where I landed too. Now, when I look at when I give my selections here, I may be all over the page on this. I may not go in exact post order because, we got these post positions late last night and we're doing this early. But I will stay on point on my horses. No Name Mets is where I landed too. I really do like this horse a lot, and but I'm gonna mix some others in here. I'm gonna Miss Waves is gonna be in my exactas, along with Cherry Blossom, a 12-1 shot, who's been running in solid company, and I'm also gonna have one other in there, Slider. So I'm gonna have No Name Mets on top, first and second, using those 3 horses.
Okay, keying No Name Mets, 2-time stakes winner, most recent races in the Tyro at Monmouth and also in the Rosies at Colonial back on the 9th of September for George Weaver. And Irad Ortiz will be taking over the ride from Paco Lopez. Mark, are you going to make it unanimous?
I am. No Name Mets, George Weaver has been so good with his turf sprinters all summer and fall. And No Name Mets has so much gate speed, so I'm thinking he can outbreak his stablemate Crimson Advocate, outbreak Big Evs. And one thing about the European turf horses coming in, I guess they're all turf horses, but the U.S. horses have more speed, so I tend to not like to play Euros that have speed, and that's worked pretty well over the years. So, Big Evs, I don't know that he's going to clear No Name Mets. Then he's got to turn for the first time. So I think that's asking a lot. The €1 I'm interested in a little bit as a price is number 10 Valiant Force at 10-1. So this horse won at Ascot at 150-1. And he's kind of done this in and out. So he finished second, then fifth, then first, then fifth. But doing a little research, when he won at Ascot in June, the trainer said, we want to go to the Breeders' Cup. We want to win the Breeders' Cup sprint and turf sprint, juvenile turf sprint. So that was the plan from the owner and the trainer from mid-June. They've been pointing for this race. Didn't run that well, going 6 at Deauville on a yielding course, but I think it'd be worth giving another shot. You might get 25-30-1 here.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, when you're mentioning a horse that won at 150-1, you scratch your head and you keep looking. It's sort of like that shiny object. I don't know whether it's a wreck on the highway or a shiny object. whatever the case, you certainly want to keep
What
your eye
about
on it.
an abandoned car on the highway?
Yeah, we have a few of these in Louisville. John, do you have as many abandoned cars in Las Vegas as we have here in Louisville? I know the answer to that is no.
No, that's not true. We have them.
They're actually more hidden. I think that's the case. Sure, let's go with that. All right, let's move quickly to the $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It's a mile into 16th, and they will be going off at 5:40 Eastern time. 13 have been drawn into the field, and this might be the story of Friday. Tamara, the 4-5 morning line favorite, the daughter of Hall of Fame Mare Beholder. They look almost alike. Drew post 7, carries the momentum and a lasting image of a 6 3/4 length runaway early last month in the Del Mar debutante. That earned a 91 buyer speed figure from the folks at Daily Racing Form. So there's a lot of hype about Tamara. Johnny, are you buying into it or are you selling it?
Not using Tamara.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. My top pick is just FYI. With Alvarado and William Mott as the trainer, I'd like the way this horse is coming into the race. Only 2 races. None of them have a lot of races. I think maybe 3 or 4 at the most. I like the improvement in those 2. I'll be using other horses also in that mix. Jody's Pride and Scalable. And Candy. Those 3 probably underneath and mixing my exactas and tries.
Okay. Mark?
I'm going to go with Candied on the rail for Todd Pletcher, and coming off a really nice race at Keeneland. A big close on a slow pace into the short Keeneland stretch, going 2 turns in a mile 16th. I like just FYI. That's my second choice. And, Tamara ran great, but she's going to have a real hot pace. She's going to go 2 turns for the first time, and the price is just going to be ridiculously low. 4-5 morning line. We might be looking at 1-2, and if she wins, applaud it. It would be a nice win and move on to the next race.
Ed?
Yeah, I feel almost exactly the same as Mark. This feels like a carbon copy of last year's Juvenile, where the Southern California horse was the big favorite, and then Todd Pletcher upset with the eventual champion Forte. What turned out to be a nice price in retrospect, and I think we could see similar with Candy getting the better of Tamara, who, like Mark said, is going to be an extremely short price. And the other thing I like with Candied is she has a triple-digit late pace rating in her last out, Brisnet late pace rating, which you can see those on our HRN past performances page. We have the juvenile fillies up. But in my time working at Brisnet, I realized that triple digit for 2-year-olds this time of year is a big indicator of a possible move forward, even off a grade 1 win like that. So if she moves forward again, she's going to be tough to beat, and you're getting a great price.
I don't want to leave the race before we talk a little bit about Tamara.
Sure. We all picked against, but.
Right. Okay. How much of that's price?
A lot of it.
For me.
It is for you, John?
She's as fast as this group, even on Ragozin, which I really respect. But to take odds on a filly who's as fast as 2-year-olds, who someone figures to improve, and if she doesn't, for whatever reason, stretching out, she's vulnerable. I mean, this is a super short price.
And Johnny, what were you about to say there?
No, it was all about price for me. I mean, if they're all going to be the same price in the race, then I'm going to use her, but definitely not 4-5, not with this quality of horses in here.
Mark, how would you be influenced maybe on a horizontal bet?
I would use Tamara defensively with something that I really liked in some of the races coming up. So I wouldn't not ever use it in the pick 3, 4, 5s. But in verticals and things like that, I'm going to really be focusing on Candy and just FYI.
Okay. So for this group, the case of Tamara fever is decidedly at 98.6. So we'll watch this space carefully. The $1 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf will go 1 mile at 6:20 Eastern time on Friday. 14 full field, plus 2 also eligibles, and with her 2-for-2 record, she feels pretty. Drew post 11 in the field of 14, made the 4-1 program favorite. So right there, that suggests a wide open race. Trained by Cherie DeVoe, the former Chad Brown assistant, and has been on a real strong streak here this summer and fall. It's a filly by Caraconte, former Breeders' Cup winner, graduated from a debut win to a Grade 1 triumph September 16th in the 1 mile Natalma at Woodbine. So 4-1 for the favorite, certainly better than 4-5 if you were looking in that direction, if it does come true. Mark, how are you taking a look at what appears to be a wide open race?
Yeah, I agree. It's a wide open race. This is a tough race. This is this one where I'm looking to spread a little bit. On top, I've got Buchu, and from a Euro standpoint, looking at the 6 Porta Fortuna, and then the 7 Gala Brand, another US horse, kind of my price at 12-1. This is a race where the US horses have done better than the Euros, so that's something to keep in mind.
Interesting. I wouldn't have said that right off the top of my head. Let me give you
the stats.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The Super Screener does a really good job of pulling that up. Okay, in 15 runnings of the juvenile fillies turf, the US based horses hold a 12-3 advantage. So that's how big of an advantage. Now it will flip in the juvenile turf, but in the juvenile fillies turf. So that's just the type of really good insights you can get from the Super Screener.
Wow. Okay. Ed, do you want to see that and raise it?
No, obviously useful information. With She Feels Pretty, my concern is sort of a wedding funeral situation. I mean, she was 6-1 on her maiden, then 8-1 in the Grade 1. And now you're looking at one of the favorites against some stout international competition. Porta Fortuna, I think, is going to be my biggest lean, though this feels like a spread, especially since I'm against Tamara in the preceding race. I feel like this, if you lean on Candide, you can use a few in here, but Porta Fortuna to me gets to stretch out, looks like a miler pedigree, been sprinting in Europe, but been winning too, and just think 5-1's the right price, and I don't think she'll be much shorter than that, so that's my strongest lean.
All right, Johnny, this is sounding wide open even in conversation. Are you going to go ahead and take it a different direction?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, hard to justify is my top pick here. Chad Brown trained horse with Pratt. Big jump up in only the 2 races, and a big jump up from the maiden special weight to the Miss Griot. And I just think there's another jump there. I think this is a really good horse. So this will be my top pick. I'm going to use a couple other horses, Gala Brand, who was mentioned, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this horse. It's Launay, I believe, Launay.
I think you're right.
Yep, Launay, the French horse, and there'll be horses I'll be using underneath. Another horse I may use underneath there is Auster.
Okay. If there's an accent like you, it's Launay. If there's not, it's Laune.
Launay.
I just say number 4.
Okay.
All right. So no consensus on this race. So a lot of food for a lot of different thoughts. So maybe this is one where you want to hit pause and do a little further handicapping on your own. We'll have some advice for you on how to maybe use some tools in that respect as well. The signature race of Friday, but not the last, seeming to be a theme with the Breeders' Cup this year, and that is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And so out of this race, we will have the de facto favorite for the Kentucky Derby. Although, that is complicated by the whole Baffert suspension thing at Churchill. Well, we'll talk about that in 6 months. But for this particular race, $2 million, 1 mile and a 16th, going the 2 turns at Santa Anita on the main track at 7 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. 11 are drawn in. It's Locked, a gunrunner colt, trained by Todd Pletcher, following his 96 buyer from a maiden-breaking win at Saratoga with a 2-turn victory this month in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. Drew post 6 and was made the 7-2 morning line favorite. Ed, let me start with you on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Well, I definitely think Muth is going to be favored. I'm very surprised to see that line.
I agree.
And either one can be favored, because my best bet, probably of the whole Breeders' Cup, is number 4 Timberlake, who I just think has flashed the most talent. And I'm going back to 2016 when Classic Empire won this race at Santa Anita Park. He threw in a dud in the Hopeful came back with the grade 1 win, albeit that was 2 turns at Keeneland. Timberlake's grade 1 win was the 1-turn mile in the slop. But I've already seen some people say, oh, how can you take a big figure in the slop? Well, I'm getting 4-1 on the horse who I think is the best in the group. And he had a big number to run back to anyway that came on a fast track. Brad Cox is happy with the way he's been training. I'm going to be happy with 4-1. He's my best bet of the weekend.
And what I meant to say when I agreed with you, Ed, is I agreed that I was surprised that Locked was the favorite. I thought a Baffert horse would be. I thought maybe it would be Prince of Monaco, because you're talking about a lot of the public may not be as savvy as a lot of horse players. They may immediately leap on the 103 buyer, which is the best for a 2-year-old this year, and take a look at this horse, even though he's never gone 2 turns. So maybe the thought here from John White, the morning line maker, is that the Bafferts, there are 3 of them in the race. It's almost like splitting the vote.
Sure.
And that could be part of it. But we'll see. Maybe there's a side bet on who will be the favorite. I'm pretty sure, though, I don't think it'll be Locked. Johnny, what do you think of the race?
What a tough race. It's not a race I'll be loading up on, that's for sure. I'm gonna go with Muth in this one. At this point, if Muth's 6-1, then that to me that was a very fair price. So this is a race certainly I'll be using others. I'll be using the Wine Steward in here. I'll be using General Partner in here. So to me, this is a race that definitely go a little deeper, and I wouldn't be surprised if a $20 horse ends up winning this one.
You have which $20 horse do we want to narrow in on? Mark, do you got a $20 horse there that we can win with?
I do not. Okay. I'm going to go with Locked here. This seems to be so much speed in here. If you look at Prince of Monaco's forward, Wind Me Up is going forward. Timberlake is a fairly fast forward horse. General Partner's going to the lead. Fierceness probably as well. Muth is going to be forward. And so I think it just sets up for Locked pretty well. He was very wide at Keeneland. Nice improving horse. Little price play Locked. Johnny mentioned the Wine Steward. I think he's improving. Could get a nice rail trip. Could get a nice exacta under Locked. And then a little fun one, the 5, the Japanese horse, the Koro Neo. If you had a chance to catch the replay, it's a little hard to find. He comes flying at 6 furlongs. It's a flyer, I admit, but 30-1 morning line could go off at 60-1. If there is a lot of speed and Locked wins, certainly I could see another closer running up for 2nd or 3rd. So it would be a horse just to dabble with in an exacta, and more so in a trifecta. So great race.
Yeah. We've gone from the morning line favorite, who we don't think will be, to me, looking for $20 horses. So it's what you look for. This is what you look for at the Breeders'
I'll be happy with 10 on my pick in there.
What's the deal on the morning line? I hate to be a morning line snob because people get to way into that too much, but we've got a 7-2 favorite and then 3 horses at 4-1. If you're doing the line, aren't you supposed to make a choice? Who's your second? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I will say this. John White is one of the, if not the best morning line writer in the country. I'll say that. So I think he tends to be true to what he believes will happen, as opposed to trying to promote some depth in terms of the odds.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people that are sort of like I said, subscribe to morning line, fishing out. You don't morning line a horse 7-1. That's a rule. And I've always been told, you need to pick a favorite. You need to pick a second favorite, unless extreme example. So I think it's pretty extreme to see 3 second favorites.
I will say this. I made the mistake once of daring to question John White on the air once about a price. And I was like, we're not going to get that. We're going to get this. And it was funny because the race that I was talking about, we went back and looked at the chart, and I think of the 7 horses in the race, he nailed it on 6 of them and was off maybe a point on the other. And I was like, okay, I think I learned my lesson. Yeah, oops for me. But Mark, I will say this. You've forgotten more than I'm ever going to know on odds making. So, I think if anyone's equipped you're equipped to ask the question more so than
I've been taught that, part of the morning line job is to be an indicator, give the public the indicator of who you think might be second. But maybe this is just, he's indicating that these 4 horses are going to be so close. And I can't argue with that.
We can. Johnny, you want to weigh in on the morning line at all on this? Do you even
I've been making them myself on different things. So, you just try your best. These guys are usually pretty good. And no, I don't want to go any further than you guys have gone.
Okay. What would Johnny Avello know about odds making? I can't imagine that. All right. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf is the last of the BC races on Friday. They've been running it like this because you have the 3 turf races and the 2 on the dirt. And so they've ended up staggering this to where this ends up being the final Breeders' Cup race on the 2-year-old day. It's a 7:40 Eastern time on Friday. 14 are entered for this 1-mile race, 2 turns. River Tiber was the choice of jockey Ryan Moore. And very often in Europe, when you're betting, you kind of see, all right, if we see multiple Aidan O'Briens, which one is Ryan Moore going to be on? He drew post 2 and was installed as 3-1 favorite. Aidan O'Brien has won this race 5 times. That's a record for any trainer in the juvenile turf. Moore rode this Wootton Bassett colt to 3 career opening wins, but then he steps up in class for a couple of Group 1s, finished 3rd in the Pre-Morny and 3rd in the Middle Park at Newmarket. Johnny, what do you think about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf?
I like a horse in here, but I hate his post, and that's Carson's Run out of the 14. But as long as the horse doesn't get any trouble early, I think this is the horse that I'll certainly be on the win place. And I like Dylan Davis. I like the way he's been progressing as a rider. A couple other horses I'll probably use in here, Endlessly, and a horse that could actually steal this race, get to the lead, is My Boy Prince. Not a lot of speed here. I could see him going out to the front, and with Rosario's kind of setting his own pace and then getting caught late.
Mark?
Yeah, it's a good race. We talked about the stats on the Euros. Here they hold an 11-6 advantage. And as you mentioned, Aidan O'Brien with 5 wins. So definitely something that you want to think about is leaning Euro here. I'm going to go with the 8 unquestionable for Aidan O'Brien. Do like Carson's Run of the Americans, as Johnny mentioned, on post 14, but I think Dylan can work out a trip. And one long shot I'm really interested in is the 3 Talk for Grab Motion. 21 morning line, could be much higher than that, and closed well in the Bourbon at Keeneland, but got shut off. Johnny V had nowhere to go, kind of strangled and lost some ground. And anyway, I think that's a horse that could certainly hit the trifecta or superfecta at monstrous odds.
Okay, Ed?
This is the favorite I like. I think River Tiber is much of the best of these, and we'll have to prove it. But at 3-1, I think he wins this race more than 25% of the time. So value to me, and this does end a $3 all turf pick 3. You mentioned the race order, and we have that juvenile turf sprint and the juvenile fillies turf, and then this. I think that's a pretty compelling sequence. And with the $3, if I'm able to spread and catch a price in one of the first 2, won't have any issue being single to AOB here. Is a tepid favorite. So hopefully the 3-1 holds, but I think he's probably the most likely winner of the 5 races, if I had to be honest.
All right. Ed loving River Tiber as one of the 3 in the field from trainer Aidan O'Brien for the juvenile turf. All right. So that does it for this particular part of the Breeders' Cup card. As we've gone through the 2-year-old races, we're going to get to the Saturday races in just a moment. But let me mention that we do have a lot of products at horseracing.nation.com. And it's not just for the Breeders' Cup. Wherever you might be betting this week, you could use some help in handicapping a lot of different tracks. Mark and Ed, you're the guys who have your finger on the pulse of all this product. You want to go ahead and dip into what we are offering here this weekend, and not only just this weekend, but year-round for those who might not be initiated in that.
Ed, you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about our products. Obviously, they show up for the big days, as we do on the Hardcore Handicapper podcast. But like Ron, they're every week, every day of racing, there's something for everyone. But for this Breeders' Cup, Mark already mentioned the Super Screener. Tons of great info there. In addition to Mike Shuddy's insight, you get the angles that go into his insight, so it helps your own handicapping as well. But then new this year, you've seen it on Horse Racing Nation. We do the fair odds for the big races. I'm going to do all 14 races that comes apart with buying the super screener. So that's something I'm excited to offer for all 14 races with the super screener purchase. And then you also get power picks, get some sire stats, track trends, the everything package, we call it, because it pretty much is everything we have. And not just for this weekend, those reports are available year round. So when you win big, like we're certain to do, hopefully you'll be back.
Pace report, first timer power ratings, sire moves, hot jockeys, top horses to single, shipper stats. There is no lack of these reports. And let me throw in one more for you too, the post position bias report. They just keep coming when you go to picks.horseracingnation.com. Find out what's right for you. And let me also mention this. If you want to really get on top of all of this, become a pro member. Look for the pro membership tab when you go to picks.horseracingnation.com. Click HRN Pro Reports at the top of the screen, and you'll see the HRN Pro membership on the menu bar. You get all this, and you can see a price that fits you by going there right now. And we'll get into more specifics on the super screener a little later on. Right now, let me just invite you to go to Picks, Picks, picks.horseracingnation.com. It is the Hardcore Handicappers preview of Breeders' Cup 2023, the 40th edition at Santa Anita. Ron Flatter with you right now from Louisville, although the bunch of us will be out in Los Angeles and specifically Arcadia for the Breeders' Cup itself as we wear on this week. And maybe by the time you see and hear this, you already will find that we're there. Also there, here is Johnny Avello in Las Vegas. You know that he is the guru of horse racing handicapping among Las Vegas odds makers and bookmakers. He's running sportsbook at DraftKings now. And Johnny, why don't you tell us a little bit about DK Horse?
Yeah, DK Horse has been in existence now since March. And it's not integrated with the DraftKings app. You have to download it separately. But it's our venture in horse racing. We've been wanting to be part of horse racing for a very long time, and now we are. Some good news happened last week. We are now in California, so we can offer California residents our product. That's really exciting for us. We certainly have promotions and daily specials on there. So a lot of content, there's not anything on our app that we don't take. There's Hong Kong racing in the middle of the night. If you're bored to death, we have something for you to wager on.
That's perfect. All right. So whether you're bored to death or excited about Hong Kong in the middle of the night, or I would also suggest Australia, maybe Europe, but certainly here at home. And it's good to hear that when we're out in California, we'll be able to use the DK Horse app. So if you're looking for that, wherever you go ahead and get your apps, whether it's at the Google Play or at the App Store, if you have an iPhone, why don't you go ahead and hit that, put it onto your phone or your tablet right now. DK Horse. Is that, Johnny, should we say it's wherever good apps are found?
Wherever good apps are found. That's a good way to put it.
That's a good one. DK Horse. We'll be looking forward to using that out at Santa Anita. Sunny and 81 degrees on Saturday. Yeah, it's going to cool off 1 degree. Winter's coming to California, I guess. So here we go. 9 races. Let's get stuck into it now. And we'll start with the $1 million Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. The story of last year could open up this year, and that will be Cody's Wish. Remember, he was the feel-good story of last year with Cody Dorman, who, of course, is afflicted and wheelchair-bound, but maybe the biggest fan for this horse, who is the 9-5 futures favorite in Post 3. He'll be the first defending winner trying to repeat in Breeders' Cup 2023. His Met Mile win in June earned him a 112 buyer, the best of 2023 for any horse still active. He's coming off a win in the Vosburg this month in New York. But, they were thinking maybe he could go classic when he didn't win the Whitney. They thought, all right, we're going to pull this back, maybe a 1-turn horse, but it's a 2-turn mile. Let's remember that, as it was last year when he won at Keeneland. With all that in the Mixed Master, Mark, what do you think?
He's 1 for 4 going 2 turns.
Ooh.
So he's a great horse, great story. Not a great bet at 9-5. A worse bet, he's probably going to go off at 4-5. So here's kick off your Saturday Breeders' Cup with a nice price in Algiers, coming in from Dubai. Ran great in Dubai, even in defeat in the Dubai World Cup. I think people are going to be really thrown off by that Woodbine synthetic race. They were looking for a prep race. I think it was in New York that washed out. So they just went up to Woodbine, got a prep there. That's not his best surface. And it was a tough field on the synthetic at Woodbine. He got his prep in and looked for Algiers to run a big race in the dirt mile. And, I'd rather wait for Cody's Wish back at one turn.
Okay, well, you can wait, but I think this is his last race. So
all right,
there's that. By the way, it's at 2:30 Eastern time out in California, 11:30 in the morning. It's like Big 12 football. Ed, what about you?
Yeah, Mark took the words right out of my mouth. I like Algiers a lot in here. Cody's Wish, just tough to back. The price is going to be. I do think it's those two. We looked at the race with the pre-entries last week, and I had a big separation to my third choice. So we're certainly going to get the right price on Algiers, because obviously Cody's Wish will take money, and then you have other horses like Zozos who are going to attract attention, and the price is going to be right. And I'm on the chalk in the next. So this is a single for me as a horse who's not going to be the favorite.
Simon and Ed Crisford, let me be full there. Trainers, and James Doyle in to ride this horse that finished a close second, actually, in the Durham Cup, the grade 3 at Woodbine back on October 7th. And if not for traffic, might have done even better than that. Johnny?
Cody's Wish is that when he was 8-1 in the Forego, I had him that day. That's the only time I've ever bet this horse. He beat Jackie's Warrior that day, and I thought Jackie's Warrior was vulnerable. It was a hot pace. I have not, like I said, I have not look at the prices on this horse. He's just always so short. I'll tell you what. So he's made me money, and another horse that's made me money that I think can go to the front and possibly steal this race is National Treasure. So I landed on National Treasure at 8-1. I also like the other guys' picks, Algiers, and so those are the two for me at this point.
Okay, National Treasure, who of course won the Preakness, and that was his most recent time, not only winning, but in 3 races since, the only time he hit the board. And in fact, he didn't even do that in the Santa Anita Derby. So you're looking at that, though. But again, he's coming back to his home course for this one, and we'll see about him for Bob Baffert with Flavien Prat in the irons. All right, that brings us to the next race on the card, the 4th race, and we'll actually get into the afternoon out in California. 3:10 Eastern time, 12:10 Pacific for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, 1.25 miles, 3-year-olds and up. There are 12 in the field, and even though she has not gone past a mile, in Spiral was made the 5-2 morning line favorite in the field of 12. Star from Europe, Star breeding, 4-year-old filly by Frankel, trained by John Gosden and his son Thady Gosden. She has won 5 Group 1 races. Most recently, the Sun Chariot on October 7th. In Spiral with Frankie Dettori up in post number 6. Ed?
Yeah, she's the filly to beat. Tepidly might try to beat her some backup, since I like Algiers so much. I wouldn't want to lose if Moira wins, who's a personal favorite of mine. But gosh, the Euros are tough no matter what, but all year we've just seen them ship in and win not only grade 1 races, but they're dinking off grade 3s at Saratoga with what seemed to be their 4th string. So the fact that this one comes over for a trainer who knows how to win in America, and certainly at Santa Anita, speaking of John Gosden, and of course, hard to imagine Frankie not getting one flying dismount over the 2 days. And to me, this is his best shot. She's the best shot. She's one of the most likely winners on the day.
When Frankie was an apprentice at Santa Anita, John Gosden's home base was Santa Anita before he moved back home to England. Johnny?
I also like this horse. I'm usually not much for real short favorites, but this horse looks pretty outstanding to me. So that will be my top pick. I will follow that up with a horse, Lindy, being ridden by Gaffleon, comes into the race off of a couple of really nice races. And other horse I'll add in here, a 15-1 shot, McCulloch. I'll have that horse also in the mix, trying to increase the price of the favorite.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm going with everybody else. And Spiral looks, like a champion type horse. John Gosden's super confident here. He's confident that she's going to get the extra distance. And this is a race the Euros have done well. So let's take on Spiral and get a nice get a chalk winner here at 5-2 would be great.
Won the La Marois at Deauville in August, and the Sun Chariot, as mentioned, for the two most recent. Last time off the board was on soft going. We're not going to have soft going this weekend. So a lot of reasons to be liking in Spiral in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. The Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint goes 7 furlongs, 3-year-olds and up at 3:50 Eastern Time. 9 are drawn in. And is this the anointing of a repeat champion? Goodnight Olive was last year's Eclipse Award-winning female sprinter. She drew the rail and was made the 6-5 morning line favorite in this field of 9. She won the Madison and the Bed of Roses this year. However, she was a beaten favorite in May in the Derby City Distaff, and she lost in the Ballerina, although to the now retired Echo Zulu. So it's a little bit more of a complicated story this year for Goodnight Olive. How do you look at this one, starting with you, Johnny?
Can't look past her. I don't know in this field who can. There's only one horse I think can beat her, and that's Society. But I just think this horse is just too good. Her last race was back in August, so there's been plenty of time to prepare for this race. Getting beat in that race by Echo Zulu, that was just tremendous race by her. That's what it's going to take, certainly out of this field, for someone to beat her. But I can't look past her, and so I think she's the most logical winner.
All right. So let's take it to you, Mark. What do you think about the Filly and Mare Sprint?
Yeah, I agree with Johnny. Goodnight Olive's going to be really tough here. I'm a little interested in Madureira, as if there's someone that can maybe beat her. She did beat her on Derby weekend, although Goodnight Olive had a little bit of trouble that day. So it's kind of like on her best day, she can beat Goodnight Olive if Goodnight Olive has a little bit of trouble. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And I think Clearly Unhinged is an interesting 3-year-old filly that's really improving. I don't know that she can win, but she might run a nice race underneath.
Ed, what do you think?
I'm really eager to see where the prices land. I think at 6-5 and 5-2, I'm going to take Society. It's just too much. I think they're more equal in talent than that. Unfortunately, being on the top 2 choices isn't too sexy. So I will say that Kristen Bosch is a horse who interests me, that maybe can pick up some pieces, closer in a sprint. There's a few in here, but at 10-1, I just see some numbers that tell me, hey, if she's running late and maybe splits the 2 favorites or catches Society and Goodnight Olive wins and Christian Bosch is second, maybe there's some value there. But this, to me, looks like one of the more straightforward races of the weekend.
Okay. As we mentioned, this could be the crowning jewel on an Eclipse Award win and a possible career end if it goes the way so many do go these days. The 6th race is the Breeders' Cup Mile, and it will be at 4:30 Eastern Time. Full field of 14, and it's Songline, a mare from Japan who drew post 10 and has been made the 5-2 favorite. 2 Grade 1 wins this year, most notably against males in the Yasuda Keenan on June 4th. Japan didn't have any wins in the Breeders' Cup for all it's trying, then got 2 at Del Mar 2 years ago, and now has itself a favorite for this race. Mark?
Yeah, I do like Songline coming in from Japan here. And interesting that they were actually pointing for this race last year. And I can't remember, the horse had a minor issue. And so the fact that they're reloading and pointing at this same race a year later, I think says a lot, and look for her to run a big race. I'm interested in the 11 Kalina, comes in a 3-year-old filly for Carlos Lafon Perias. I don't know how to say it, but
Oh, you nailed it.
He's hadn't really shipped in, I think, to Breeders' Cup a whole lot, but used to ship in every fall to the Grade 1 Garden City at Belmont. Had some success. I think he's a trainer that when he ships, you need to take notice, and so I'm taking notice of the 11 Kalina. And Master of the Seas got a rough post on the 14, but I think you got to include him as well.
Okay, Ed.
I'm going to swing with some local. Can't quite say American because Cheryl Spite's one of them, but I like Casa Creed. I think he's going to get overlooked between the Euros, and even though he has Grade 1 wins on the page, just a name, and he ran in the turf sprint last year, people might associate him with that instead of as a miler. I think this is the right spot for him, and the numbers just stack up too well, knowing that others are going to be bet for me to ignore at 8-1. And then Cheryl Spite, I was up there for the Woodbine Mile, and there was definitely concern about his, being ready in the King Edward, which he got beat, is the favorite. Said he needed that race. They were still a little concerned, oh, he might need this one. And all the chatter was, the point of this is to get to the Breeders' Cup. This is a means to an end. This is the end. And at 30-1, I have to gamble that one of the best trainers in North American history has one more in him, because this is the spot they've been targeting. And the horse fits with a little bit of improvement off his best. Yeah, that's a big if, but at 30-1, you're getting compensated for it.
Cheryl Spite for Roger Atfield, Casa Creed for Bill Mott. Casa Creed, by the way, won the Kelso and the 4-star Dave this summer at Saratoga. Johnny?
I also like Casa Creed. I think the horse has been consistent coming into this race just right, really good now. One of the other horses I like is Master of the Seas, who was also mentioned. He's also coming in with a couple of really sharp races, actually 3 in a row. And one horse I was going to use in there as to maybe elevate some of the prices of the exactas, if I'm fortunate to get one of those other two in, is Du Jour. Du Jour's Bob Baffert's trained. His wife owns the horse with Debbie Lonnie. Terry Lonnie was a great horseman from Las Vegas, and he's owned horses. I don't know if Debbie is his wife or not, but I remember Terry as a very nice man, this horse is coming in with 2 straight wins, home cooking from California, so a horse that certainly beware at a pretty nice price.
And let me ask you, you mentioned the home cooking in California. Let me throw it out for the cyber room. How much does that mean to you here? Horses that are based in Santa Anita, Mark?
It doesn't really mean anything.
Okay.
I mean,
Ed?
At the risk of being overly pejorative, things have changed since Mandela won 4 in 2003. California just is not an A circuit anymore, in my mind, in most of these divisions. So the home team just isn't as good.
Johnny?
That is true, but I always look at it as if if a team's traveling to London, it takes a little bit out of them. So it's nice to be able to stay home in your home confines, and I think that helps a little bit. So I don't totally disregard it.
And neither do I. And if it's a Baffert speed horse, I certainly don't. If it's if it's Papa Padromo, I'm like, well, no. But if it's a Baffert speed horse and went through the sales ring at a pretty high price, I look a little harder at that, more so than I would say a Baffert at Keeneland. Not that he could run there, but you know what I'm saying, right? So anyway, there's that. All right. From whether there's a home course advantage to whether there's not, and we go to the Breeders' Cup Distaff. $2 million is the purse. 1 mile and an eighth is the distance. 5:10 p.m. Eastern time is when the post will be going, and the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, there are 11 of them. The division's would-be champion Idiomatic drew post 4, is the 5-2 morning line favorite. among the 11 entrants. 4-year-old by Curlin, trained by Brad Cox. She's won 7 of 8 this year, finished second in her only loss, and most recently finished 4.5 lengths to the good in the Spinster at Keeneland. Ed, what do you think about the distaff?
I'm going to take another shot with the Chad Brown trainee. Dunbar Road broke my heart a couple years ago, and he came back with search results last year. And it looks like he's tinkering with the plan. Dunbar Road had run in the Spinster to the distaff and got beat a nose. Search results, he decided to lay off from Travers Week last year, and she was a little dull. So this year, he split the difference and ran in the prep at Churchill in September. And I thought search results looked awesome. Unfortunately, she looked awesome on the front end, which idiomatic is certainly going to make things difficult from that regard. But I just think Chad really wants to get this race. I know for a fact that Dunbar Road still haunts him. So maybe he and I can both exercise some demons here with search results, who I do think is going to be a fair price because you have Idiomatic, you have the Oaks winner, you have some names that are going to attract some money. And she will too, but not enough. I think she'll be fair. Search results for me.
Okay, Johnny?
There's a lot of speed in this race. And so I'm looking for somebody that would be just off the pace a bit. So I landed on Clairiere. Now, I know Clairiere's last race looks pretty bad, but, the personal ensign, that was in the slop. So I draw a line through that one. Everything leading up to that's okay. And if you look at Clairiere last year, when she came into the distaff, she ran into personal ensign and didn't run well then, but ran a very nice distaff running third close. And so I'm looking for Clairiere to be close to the pace, and if they're all going to go out and duel with each other, her to make that one move there at the end.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, if I have money on Clairiere, she will lose, and if I don't, she will win. She is the inscrutable horse of my recent times, Mark.
Yeah, I'm with Johnny. I think this sets up really nice for Clairiere. Same path as last year, and she ran a bang-up race. Remember, there were 3 noses on the wire with Malathat, Blue Stripe, and Clairiere. Not only there's no Malathat and Blue Stripe in here, as Johnny said, there's a lot more pace. If you look at Clairiere's form, she's almost never gotten a pace, and she still somehow closes from the back and gets into all these races. If there's a pace here, look out. I think this is a gift. I'm a little disappointed that 4-1 on the morning line, but you might get higher than that. I think it sets up for her perfectly. My only concern is just that there's enough pace that somebody keeps Idiomatic busy for the first half of the race. I think if you check that box, Clairiere comes running and gets it.
It does seem like she should be higher than 4-1, but everyone's picking her, so she might actually be only 4-1.
Okay.
If you looked at offshore betting too, I'm kind of with you, Ed. But it seems maybe she's become a wise guy horse just in the last 45 seconds, right? I mean, from that, I mean, in all seriousness, Clairiere is the inscrutable horse in this field. That's part of it. I'll give you another one, and I mentioned it with this whole home course advantage thing. Adair Manor. Adair Manor might be the fastest horse in the race. What we don't know is what she can do against a decent sized field. The last 5 races, the most rivals she's faced is 4. So there's that. I think you're getting more than 4-1 on her too. I think. I mean, she was 6-1 in offshore betting.
I think Idiomatic has her covered. Idiomatic's inside. Idiomatic's faster, and the fact that she's been doing well against short fields, there's your answer. That it's only going to be tougher for Adair Manor in a larger field.
By the way, when the draw was made on Monday, there was a lot of the Twitter or X chatter that Cox won the day in the draw and Baffert lost. Basically, for part of what you're saying, Mark, a lot of where the speed horses were lining up, and he has so many speed horses, and it becomes an all or nothing circumstance in that case.
Yeah, and then just wanted to add that, Ed, you're a glutton for punishment here, going back to the Dunbar Road one more time.
Got to give it a shot. 5-1, not quite the same price, but it's a compelling race. I mean, in addition to the older female up for grabs, probably 3-year-old filly could be decided here, depending on what happens. So this is what championship's all about.
Yeah, Mark, if you look at it with Ed, maybe it's one of those cases where one of the also eligibles is definition of insanity. All right, 2, 3.
And Ron, one more thing on the price.
Yeah.
On speed figures, I think Idiomatic and Clarier lay over the field, so that's why Clarier is getting that attention.
Okay.
Ronnie, would you do me a favor, big favor?
What's that?
If you're going to play her, would you please let me know?
You want to book it? Okay. All right. I'm glad I'm on vacation the next 2 weeks so that that dining out on Crow won't necessarily have to include me. Breeders' Cup Turf is race number 8. It's at 5:50 Eastern time, 1.5 miles on the course, and they'll start on the downhill. 3-year-olds and up, 13 of them are in. Mostadaf, 5-year-old Frankel horse, one going away, and the Prince of Wales is at Royal Ascot and outlasted Nashua 2 months ago in the Juddmonte International at York. 5-2 program favorite, drawing post 9. I mean, this one, when you start to think about the race that Europeans are aiming for, you certainly look at this one. The $4 million purse, Auguste Rodin, second choice, having won the Irish champion after a couple of derbies this year for Aidan O'Brien. Ryan Moore will be up. This one, I know Europe is buzzing about this race, wishing it didn't have to take place an ocean away, but here it is. We got it over here in good old USA. Johnny, what do you think about the turf?
I think most of the stuff is going to be awfully tough. I think 5-2. I'd probably be in at 5-2 if that's where that horse ends up holding. Another horse I looked at in the race was King of Steel that the Tory's on. So 2 Europeans. Hard to look past Europeans here, isn't it?
Yes, it is very hard. I don't know, Mark, do you have any of the stats on the Breeders' Cup Turf? I'm asking you without notice, but I mean, we know this is a made for Europe race, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Europeans dominate this race. I don't have the stats, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Mark, but you do have some ideas on how you might want to bet this race, right?
Pretty similar. I'm looking at Auguste Rodin and Mostadaf as the top 2 Europeans, and those are the 2 morning line prices favorites. So nothing exciting there.
Nothing exciting there then. All right, Ed.
Yeah, and Mostadaf to me over Auguste Rodin. I'd be interested if any matchups show up anywhere in terms of what they would be against each other, because I definitely prefer the Gosden trainee in this one. Up to the mark, I was salivating weeks ago thinking, he's going to be such a play against in the Breeders' Cup against the Euros. And I know that the Boo Birds have been out about the choice to come to the turf instead of the mile. He has numbers that fit, and obviously it's a tougher comparison with the Euros, so you got to do a little extrapolation, but it wouldn't shock me if he runs well. And it's a board situation, but if he gets ignored, I would prefer using him over even Auguste Rodin, but I do see Gosden as the one to beat.
All right. So that's the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, it's always one of those races every year that as we're talking amongst ourselves, I always feel like I should get Scott Burton or Lee Mottershead from Racing Post in here, or Matty Plale, just to go ahead and say, hey, you're all wrong. But yeah, I'm happy to go and ride with what we know from this vantage point. What we do know really well, of course, is the field for the Breeders' Cup Classic. We're very familiar with these horses. 13 of them are in, 6:40 Eastern time on Saturday, 1.25 miles, and they'll go the length of the stretch first time by, and then once around the 2 turns. And Arcangelo, we've heard the fitness questions about him, the shoe issue. Maybe that was a telling point in the making of Arabian Night, the 3-1 morning line favorite, because Arcangelo has been the futures favorite in betting internationally all the way up to this race. With Arabian Night, Bob Baffert looks for his 5th win in the Classic with a 3-year-old colt who has raced a whopping 4 times. 3 wins, and you thought last year with Flightline it was a very limited resume. Now, Arcangelo drew the rail, was installed as the 7-2 second choice, coming off his August win in the Travers, with the Belmont win having come before that. Mark, let's start with you.
Yeah, nice race. Tough to split at the top. I'm not really interested in Arabian Night, so I'm looking inside. And I'm going to stick with Arcangelo. I think a great 3-year-old season, and Jenna Antonucci's done everything right. And look for one more there. White Abarrio obviously is a now horse. There's so much talk about this horse. I think the odds could come down quite a bit, but that would be my second choice. And then also looking at Ushba Tesoro.
Ushba Tesoro from Japan. Yeah, I mean, interesting that you say, yeah, Japan, it's all about turf. No. Remember, Japan won the distaff with Marche Lorraine 2 years ago. So, no, it's not just about turf. They run dirt there plenty. In case you're not in the know on that, Ed.
White Abarrio ran the fastest race of the year, at least, classic prep type race, which I guess the Whitney's a prep now for the classic. But if he runs back to that, he's the winner. And yes, there's some questions, the layoff, the distance, there's reasons he doesn't have to run back to that, but I think he's going to end up fourth, maybe fifth choice in here. Flip side of that is I've seen odds out already from some competitors of Johnny's, and they have him as the favorite. So who knows how he's actually going to get bet. No one likes him but me, or at least this bullish. So I'm hoping that that's the case when the money actually goes in. But he has the best race to run back to. And then Senor Buscador is absolutely my vertical key. Unfortunately, we've lost some pace. So a little vigor out of that opinion, but he's going to be 30-1. And if he can crash the party, it's going to spice everything up in a 13-horse field. So White Abarrio on top, Senor Buscador underneath.
Johnny?
I was up there for White Abarrio's race, and I had him that day, and had the exacta with Zandon, who's been good to me in the second position in exactas. I do like Arabian Night a lot in this race. The post is not ideal, the 12, but I think this horse is much better than these 4 lines show, and these 4 lines show him to be pretty good. I know he's training lights out down there. My only concern with this race is, what is Saudi Crown going to do? Is Saudi Crown and Giroux going to go out and, try to get into a speed duel with this horse? I don't think so. So I just think that Arabian Nights can go out and either be first or second and win this race. So at 3-1, I think that's a fair price. I'd be happy with that.
How much does the noise about Arcangelo impact your opinion of him? Let's start with Mark.
I think it's something that you've got to monitor all the way up into the race. So that, if you are on Arcangelo, which I am at the moment, I think you've just got to pay attention to the news.
Ed?
So it could potentially.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know what he did as we're recording. There have been a couple of days of not going to the track. It would seem like any more of that, and you're in a tough spot. So yeah, just one of those situations. It does pay to pay attention what he's doing day to day.
Yeah, Johnny, I mean, we certainly learned that in the Derby when we were talking a lot in this podcast, certainly about Forte, and then, he becomes a race day scratch and you're back to the drawing board. What about for you with Arcangelo?
It's not like in sports where, a player has a sore shoulder and still plays in the game. That's not the way it's going to be here. If Arcangelo is right, Arcangelo was going to run. And if Arcangelo is not right, anything whatsoever, he will not run. So if he's in the race, I would not be concerned with any of the chatter.
All right. Well, and there'll certainly be plenty of chatter between now and post time at 6:40. And by the way, if you're wondering, the early post time for the Classic with 2 more Breeders' Cup races to go, it's because NBC, which televises the Breeders' Cup, has a football commitment at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So the Classic is being run ahead of that. And so with that, a couple races will occur after the climax, and that's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint being one of them, the $1 million 5 furlong race. Yeah, just 5. No, they're not on the downhill. This will be 3-year-olds and up, 12 of them, plus 4 also eligibles, 7:25 Eastern. Despite finishing 4th in the Woodford October 7th at Keeneland. Living the Dream, the lukewarm 9-2 top choice, drawing post 5. 4-year-old gelding based in Europe, finished first in the Nunthorpe 2 starts back in York, England. So if 9-2 is the favorite, we know there are prices aplenty here, Ed.
Absolutely. And I'm going to shoot for one. I think I picked Christophe Clement in every turf sprint for some reason. And he's close. He's got me in the ballpark, but maybe we can close the deal here with Roses for Deborah, who pretty rare that you see this few firm turf races, but a couple goods and then a yielding, which was definitely her clunker relative to her standards. I'm a little concerned with the backward move last out, not typically how I like horses coming in form, so to speak. But I do think there's an excuse there. And when you look at the firm races, sprinting on turf, she's easily among the best in this group. And you get the 3 pounds with her being a filly, and you get 12-1, at least on the morning line. So to me, this is one I'm excited about. Not to the point where I think she's like the most likely winner or anything, but the price is right. And if we can get through the Classic with, even one of the likely winners, to me, Roses for Deborah is a great horse to be live to in the Maltese.
Good or firm for Clement, undefeated. The one flaw, of course, the one fly in the ointment was the yielding, as you mentioned, in the Turf Monster on that sodden day at Parks. What about you, Johnny?
I like Motorius in here, 5-1 on the morning line. This is a horse that I will be using, certainly bet and win place, and using in my exactas. Now, there's 2 horses that I will be using it with, and they are both pretty good prices. Beer Can Man will be coming out of the 14 with Pratt riding, and Big Invasion with Rosario out of the 1. So this is a race that I'm looking for a big exacta on.
What are you looking for, Mark?
I like Big Invasion a lot here and the way he's coming up to the race. But I'm really concerned about this 5 furlong distance. And, they don't really run 5 furlong turf sprints that often. And there's not really that much speed in this race. So, I said earlier, I'm not a really big fan of Europeans on the lead, but if Living the Dream runs the race he ran at Keeneland, shortening up to 5 on a firmer turf course, I just don't see that much other speed. So I've got to use that one. Love the price on Big Invasion, so I'm going to hope a little bit more on Big Invasion. But like I said, I'm just not sure that this race is going to come back to some of these closers. I love the closers that the guys mentioned, as well as Big Invasion. Now that could change a little bit if one time he doesn't even have that much speed. There's just not a lot of speed here. No Balls would be another one to consider, because No Balls has got probably the second fastest horse.
It's interesting you mentioned Big Invasion, and of course on the other Clement, so we got some Christophe power here in this race. And let's see now. We've got, 1 to go. The $2 million Breeders' Cup Sprint, 6 furlongs on the main course. 3-year-olds and up, 8 o'clock Eastern time. There are 9 in the field. Not a big field, partly maybe because the reigning division champion Elite Power is back. Drew post 8, 9-5 to repeat in this race. He had an 8-race winning streak that was ended when Gunite beat him in the Forego. Johnny, is this the crowning of a champion, or are you going to try to beat him?
The Chosen Vron. The Chosen Vron just does not lose. So has this winning streak of, I don't know what it is, 8 or 9 in a row. How am I going to possibly go against that, at 5-1 or more? So that's where I'm landing on the win end. I'm also looking at Gun Night and Dr. Chevelle in the mix.
Okay, Chosen Vron 8 in a row and is based in Southern California. A couple of those were turf starts in the middle of all that, and he will be cutting back. Or no, I take that back. He'll be staying at 6 furlongs. Mark?
It's interesting with Elite Power, off of his record and his, win last year, he could be a lot lower than 9-5, but I think the track at Santa Anita is going to play against him. I think the pace in here is going to play against him. So I think this is a nice shot to take some shots against Elite Power. You know, I don't like most of Baffert's horses the first day and a half, but this might be a shot where he gets there with number 7 Speedboat Beach at 3-1. As Johnny mentioned, Chosen Ron is interesting as well. And then I think Dr. Scheivel, who just missed in the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Del Mar a couple of years ago, is one to think about. So I'm looking at those 3.
Ed?
Yeah, this is the toughest one for me, because Elite Power has his best is better than any of these have ever run, and he's run those races a couple times. That was a big step back last out, though, I thought. Goodnight he has one big race too when he beat Elite Power, but they're going to be shortish prices. Certainly Elite Power will be. So I'd love to be live to a few here. And while we were talking, I looked it up, some shipper stats for Breeders' Cups at Santa Anita since 2014, and Southern California flat bet profit for horses who last raced in California, who then go on to Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. So that would be 2014, 2016, 2019. Last 3 editions, there was some home cooking advantage. So I sit corrected on that. And that gives me all the more reason to appreciate a horse like Hoist the Gold, well, I do like Hoist the Gold, but Nakatomi, who shipped to Keeneland, did well, based in California. I think definitely can run well here. I'm looking to upset the favorites, though.
And there you have it from the hardcore handicappers, their view on each of the 14 races on the Breeders' Cup card. But what about an overarching view? What is the best play for each of them? We'll find out in a moment. But I do want to talk to Mark and Ed specifically about the Super Screener available to you at picks.horseracingnation.com. Gents, do you want to extol the virtues of this wonderful tool that was invented by Mike Schutte?
I mean, I would just say that it's an invaluable tool for the Breeders' Cup because you've got 14 races, and he goes back and looks at the differences and the trends of each of these 14 races, because they're all different. And like I mentioned earlier, the juvenile turf and the juvenile fillies turf play differently, and so those are the kind of things that you're not going to know from just handicapping off of the past performances. So there's a lot of great insights. It's just so worth it, and it's something I would never consider handicapping Breeders' Cup without.
Ed, do you want to toss a couple more bouquets into the mix?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the big thing for me, in addition to, Mike clearly tells you what he's thinking and how he got to where he is picks and wagering wise. So you get both the pick and how to use it. But being able to see the screener variables, the things that went into the process, obviously helps you understand why he made the picks he did, but also is very applicable to your own handicapping and can give you sort of that, when you're between 2 horses, you realize, oh, this is the better bet, and here's why. And Screener lays that all out for you race to race. So not only do you get Mike's great insight, but he helps you become a better horse player too.
And to find out how you can get involved and get yourself some of the benefits that we just talked about, go to picks.horseracingnation.com. Click the Super Screener on the upper left, and you'll see an amazing offer. Lock it in right now, and the 2-day Super Screener package will cost you only $57. If you've used the Super Screener before, you know what a good deal it is. And if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? $57 is all it costs for the whole package right now. And by the way, this is the other thing. If something happens between the time you get Super Screener and the time the race begins, you get updates sent right to you, so you can be alerted. Like when a horse named Rich Strike drew into the Kentucky Derby. Just an example of what you get when you look for the Super Screener at Picks, P-I-C-K-S, picks.horseracingnation.com. Let's wrap up the Hardcore Handicappers episode of the Ron Flatter Racing Pod with this reminder. Past performances heard here are provided by Brisnet, the only place where you can find Kieran's speed points, the easy way to map the pace in any race. Find out more for yourself at brisnet.com. One note, while we were recording this episode, we learned the news of Practical Move, the dirt mile competitor, suffering a seizure right near Clocker's Corner at Santa Anita. As we were recording, we did not have a conclusion to the developments in the story. So if you're wondering why we had not mentioned it until now, it literally happened while we were recording. So I just wanted to put that there now to offer you context in case you needed to integrate that into what we were talking about. With that now having been dealt with, we now deal with the best bet of the week, or maybe just a creative way of asking, how are you going to play this Breeders' Cup in, I don't know, 25 words or less? Maybe not 25. Mark, I'll start with you.
Just first, I want to say thanks to have Johnny with us as always. Excited to have DK Horse and DraftKings getting further into horse racing, which is great. And we're also excited to partner with DK Horse to get the word out for Breeders' Cup. I'll keep it simple. Of two of my best bets of the weekend are Algiers in the Dirt Mile and Clairiere in the Distaff. I think those are very likely winners at good prices. And I think if you want to make money, try to get to those horses in a double, get to them in a pick three or use them as singles and pick fours to kind of build up your value and then spread in some of the other races. So those are two I'm really looking at.
All right, mark that one down from Mark. Ed?
Timberlake, certainly on Friday. I have no doubt I'm going to get the price I want on him. So he's my best bet in terms of hopefully a nice win bet, singling in the multis. On Saturday, a reminder, we didn't really touch on it, but there are a pair of 50-cent pick fours that are all turf, alternating. So it's every other race with the turf races, and then they do the same for the dirt. And I am eager to play that dirt one because I'm going to lean on White Abarrio. I'm against the top two choices in the sprint. And then you still have to get the Distaff and the filly and mare sprint right. But, to me, being against Elite Power to close it out, I think could hopefully be live to some nice numbers. So the all dirt pick four on Saturday going to be a big part of my play with White Abarrio, a single.
No one has been on this podcast more than I. Throw me out, which isn't always a bad idea. The next most, Johnny Avello. Go ahead with that wisdom, Johnny, and offer us what you have for the Breeders' Cup as a big picture play.
Well, one thing about the Breeders' Cup is that all the horses that are running, 99% of them are all good horses, and any one of them can win. So don't be surprised, if a horse wins that we have not selected, because that's the beauty of having such elaborate field here. The horse that I think is on the Friday that for me is my best bet is going to be No Name Mets. It's not because I've been a Met fan my entire life and had the most disappointing season this year. Yeah. It's because we actually have a horse here that I think is pretty good coming into the race just right with a price that's very fair. So No Name Mets is my best play on Friday. And I really think Arabian Night's going to be tough in the Classic. It's going to be one of those where goes out, and if there's not a lot of pressure early, I think this horse will wire the field.
You stole my thunder on that one. I absolutely agree with you on the Breeders' Cup Classic, Johnny. So I'll give you credit for that. Again, there's a reason you've been on the podcast so much. And we're happy to have you back again. And thank you to all of you for your insights on the Breeders' Cup, and look forward to seeing you face-to-face in California, even if it is my face. Thank yous again to Mark Midland, Ed DeRosa, and Johnny Avello. We have a regular episode on Friday, and by then I will be at Santa Anita, where guests will be heard from the stable area, featuring connections for some of the contenders in Breeders' Cup 2023, and Super Screener creator Mike Shuddy will have some handicapping thoughts about the races too. Until then, on behalf of the hardcore handicappers, this is Ron Flatter. As Jay Trotter said in Let It Ride, even when you know, you never know.